Good evening and welcome to Veterans Radio. My name is Dale Throneberry and I'll be your host this evening on Father's Day, and happy Father's Day to all of you out there. It's a great day for us dads, and we've got a great program also for everybody on this Father's Day. Again, we're going to be listening to some people that I'm going to start over again because I just screwed it up. I should write all this stuff out every once in a while.
You're talking too much into it too. I think you have to talk more across it.
I don't know of anybody over there. Okay, we're going to give you another track. Ken, go to track 2. Good evening and welcome to Veterans Radio, and happy Father's Day to all of you fathers and dads out there. We're really grateful for you listening to the program this evening, and we've got a great show for you. We've got some representatives from the Sons and Daughters in Touch who are survivors, sons and daughters whose fathers died in Vietnam, and they've got some great stories to tell us. And then later on in the program, our guest is going to be Alan Ho, and Alan Ho has got a great and very powerful story about his experiences with the 196th Infantry in Vietnam, and also his son's experiences with the 196th Infantry in Iraq. Alan Ho is a warrior. He's the son of a warrior, and his sons are sons of warriors. It's a great story, and I think that you're really going to enjoy it, and Gary Lilly will have that interview in just a little bit. But first of all, we've got a birthday greeting for the Army, and we want to say happy birthday to the Army from the Secretary of the Army, and here's that for you now. And happy birthday, Army. It's a pretty big cake, I think. It's 200 and some odd candles, and I'm sure somebody will give us the correct year. I don't remember it right now. We also had an opportunity this week to talk to the governor. As you know, that on Wednesday was Flag Day, and there has been some controversy in the state of Michigan because what we've been doing in Michigan is the governor has authorized the lowering of flags to half-staff every time that an American soldier or Marine or anything like that is killed in Iraq, and she's going to talk a little bit about that, and then she's going to also offer her Father's Day greeting. So here is the governor of Michigan. Okay, you all heard that. She said that whatever vets want, vets get, and so we're going to try and keep her to that promise. Right now we're going to do our Welcome Home segment, and our Welcome Home is sponsored by Gary Lilly and Associates, commercial real estate here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we want to welcome home the 126th Armored Battalion of Wyoming, Michigan. They have just returned from the Army National Guard from Afghanistan. And we want to welcome them home, and we're glad that they're back in the great state of Michigan. We also want to welcome home to Fort Carson, Colorado. The 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment has returned from Iraq, and they did a great job while they're over there, and we want to make sure that they got the welcome home that they deserve. We also want to welcome home all of the fathers who have been in any conflicts that America has been in over the last 60, 70 years. And from Veterans Radio, we want to say happy Father's Day to all of you, and welcome home. All right, we're back on Veterans Radio right now, and Gary, I understand you've got a guest on the phone.
I do, Dale. Elaine Roach is a member of Sons and Daughters in Touch. Hers is a moving story on this Father's Day. Elaine, tell us what Sons and Daughters in Touch is and what it's all about.
Sons and Daughters in Touch is an organization that began in 1990, and it was originated by Tony Cordero. And its purpose is to bring together the sons and daughters of the men that were killed in Vietnam.
And you suffered a loss?
I did. My father was killed on October 2nd, 1964, in the South China Sea.
He was a pilot then?
He was a pilot off of the Kearsarge. And he flew S-2F trackers.
Elaine, how many members are there of Sons and Daughters in Touch? And well, we know who's eligible to join. How many members do you have now?
We have about 3,000.
2,000?
No, 3,000.
3,000? That's an astounding number. I had no idea. What ages? What are the range?
Some people are in their early 30s and ranging up to the mid-50s, actually, depending on, the age of your father and what year he served. As you know, it was the pretty long war.
So it was a long war, and some of the pilots were in their 30s and even 40s, and they would have probably been the oldest ones to die over there. Were there any women who left sons and daughters behind, or is it all men?
Actually, there were 8 women that are on the wall, but none of them were mothers. And that's why we celebrate Father's Day, actually. I think the oldest person was General George Casey, Jr., and he, I believe, is in his mid-50s, and he's actually a commander of the multinational forces in Iraq presently.
Really? So the warrior tradition carries on.
It does.
Tell us about the Father's Day tradition for Sons and Daughters in Touch.
Well, the first one began in 1992, and we were a fairly small group at that point. And we went to the Vietnam Memorial Wall to celebrate Father's Day. And Father's Day for us, those of us that lost our fathers, was kind of a non-existent day in our lives. You just kind of ignored the whole thing in our family anyway. And I realized on that first Father's Day in 1992 that I had never bought a Father's Day card or a Father's Day gift, gone to a barbecue or anything. So it was quite moving to have that first Father's Day. We all gather at the wall, and we have sharing groups, and we actually lay roses, and a lot of us bring memorabilia and leave it at the wall, and basically we get together and talk about our fathers, because we really, growing up, never got to do that.
Is there a part of the tradition, did you say, that you wash the wall down at dawn on Father's Day?
We actually do it, yes. We go and we wash it, to prepare so they can see the reflection, because when you stand before the wall, you can actually see yourself in with the names, and it's very moving. So we all go to the wall and scrub it down and polish it up, and
that's how you communicate with your father.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you were 8 years old when your father died. How much do you remember of him?
There were actually 3 children in my family. I was 8. I had an older sister that was 10, and I had a 6-year-old brother. And I'm actually the one that has the most memories of my father. My older sister has none, and I think it was just trauma. She blocked all of her memories of him. But most of my memories are kind of events, because I realized today that, my dad was serving in the U.S. Navy for almost 10 years, and so he would be on tour quite often. And much of my 8 years of life, he would be gone anyway. But I do remember certain times around certain holidays, and I've been actually working really hard to try to remember more things. But it's hard to remember too much from back then.
As the years go on, I imagine. Your mother, did she talk about it much?
My mother, the way she dealt with it was she erased everything about my dad. She took all of his clothes out of the house. She took all the pictures down and boxed them up in a little tiny box with his flag. And we never really talked about my dad too much. And I think it was her way, because it was too sad. If we just pretended like it didn't happen, that it would be easier for her. And through Sons and Daughters in Touch, I've learned that many of the mothers dealt with it that way. Some of the mothers dealt with it by talking about it a lot. So it's just different people's ways of dealing with the grief.
I've seen similar reactions to people. Now, the warrior tradition continued in your family with your son?
Surprisingly, actually, I was quite surprised when my son came to me only about 3 years ago and said that he wanted to join the Army. And I told him that was sacrilegious, because if you were a Navy person, that you don't do Army, you know. But he really wanted to serve his country. He felt that what was going on in the world was wrong, and that he wanted to do something important with his life. And I was basically pretty hysterical about him joining the military, because, you know, I'd lost my father, and I definitely didn't want to lose my son. And he let me cry, and he held me, and he said that he wasn't afraid to die.
I've said this to many of my veteran friends, and I've never gotten a response that was anything other than agreement. I've learned that it's easier to go to war than it is to have a son or daughter go to war, and I've never had any children.
Oh, yeah, I believe that. I know losing my father was just unbelievably tragic. I really think that I was kind of my dad's, you know, favorite out of the group, and I was very close to him, and it was really hard on me to lose him, and didn't think anything could ever be as bad as that until I lost my son. And you know, I was a single mom with him for the first 7 years of his life, and so we were very close. And I did learn from losing my dad too, is to live each day to its fullest, and that's what I taught him. And so it makes sense that, you know, he would want to do this with his life, is because he was truly living. He wasn't just existing.
And this is you're an awfully brave woman to do this interview, talking about a lost father and a lost son in two different wars. How do you hold on to this? How do you handle it?
Some days are better than others, I have to admit. And it's been 42 years since my father died, and the first 20 were very difficult. And then I, you know, started talking about it. That's one of the things that Sons and Daughters in Touch is about, is I thought I was the only person. I mean, now logically you know that other people have died in the war, but when you're 8 years old, you don't have the capabilities to figure that out. And saying the word Vietnam was kind of a bad word back then anyway.
It was, and we couldn't talk about it. Elaine, thank you very much for being on Veterans Radio. And if someone wants to join Sons and Daughters in Touch, they can find them on the internet?
Yes, they can.
www.sdit.com?
.org.
.org. SDIT.org.
Yes.
Elaine Roach, thank you so much for being on Veterans Radio, and God bless you.
Thank you, Gary.
We'll be right back. And we're back at Veterans Radio on this Father's Day. Our next guest is Alan Ho, a Vietnam veteran. Alan has a story that intertwines between generations. It's a poignant story, and we're incredibly proud to have you with us, Alan.
Aloha, Gary. I'm honored to have been asked to participate, especially on Father's Day.
The story, I don't even know where to begin. Tell us about yourself and your own service, Alan.
Well, I guess like for the majority of Vietnam-era veterans, we grew up really in a different time. When I was a young boy, service to one's country was kind of a very well-respected and honored tradition. I was drafted in 1966 and had, I believe, the good fortune to be assigned to become a combat medic. And I was a combat medic. I went to Vietnam in December of 1967, was attached to the 2nd Battalion, 1st Infantry Regiment, which at that time was part of the 196th Light Infantry Brigade. Subsequently became part of the 23rd Infantry Division, or Americal.
And
we were
how old
stationed
were you
in
at that time?
I Corps.
You operated where?
In I Corps.
You were up in I Corps. Okay, that's
Yes,
where I was.
actually, division base camp was at Chulai, and the brigade base camp was up at Hill 35 at Tam Key.
Really? Pardon me for this pause. I helped build some of the hooches up at Hill 35 back in 1966.
Oh, okay. Well, they were still standing when I got there.
Good, because those Marines didn't take care of them. We showed up at work every now and then. There'd be holes in the roofs. So, okay.
Yeah.
You're not the first warrior from your family, Alan.
No, I'm not. I'm actually third generation, and my two sons were actually fourth generation U.S. soldiers.
And so,
and then I guess beyond that is we have. I'm a native Hawaiian, and my native Hawaiian ancestors were warriors that fought with King Kamehameha in the mid and late 1700s.
You know, I wonder about our society, that it seems to honor the warriors of every other society except our own. And I'm so proud to come from a long line of warriors, the same as you. Mine, like some of yours, are Scottish. I saw in your biography that you have Scottish ancestors.
Exactly. My ethnic heritage really is Native Hawaiian, and I have Caucasian ancestors that came from Europe and actually from Massachusetts. And my father is Asian, so I have Asian ancestry from both China and Japan. And exactly, my Scottish ancestry were warriors, and one of my great grandfathers actually participated. He was part of, I guess, the Raj in India, and participated during the Battle of Sevastopol. So it's a fascinating background.
Exactly. I'd like to spend a lot of time talking about that,
Yeah.
but let's get back to your story. How old were you?
I was 19 years old when I was drafted.
And you were a doc.
And I was a doc.
What?
I still am a doc.
And you still are, even though you're a lawyer.
Yeah, even though I'm a lawyer. You know, it's just one of those things that your guys will just not let go. And I'm truly blessed and honored that we still have that relationship with the guys I served with.
Well, you guys walk on water, according to the grunts. But you were attached to a special forces unit?
Well, no, I was part of in 1967. As the war began to take on a different kind of meaning tactically, our battalions, the battalions in the 196 Light Infantry Brigade were authorized to establish long-range recon teams. And so when I got there, I was asked by the platoon leader, who had been tasked with his job, to be part of the long-range recon team for 2nd Battalion, 1st Infantry. And I thought, being then kind of young and looking for some adventure, thought that sounded a lot more exciting than just being attached to some clinic somewhere or being part of a infantry line company. And so I started off with that opportunity, and I never regretted it.
At times, I imagine we all question our sanity when we volunteer for things, but your story then becomes one. How many men were there on a LRP team?
When we first started, there was just a dozen of us, but throughout the course of the year, we actually built the platoon to include 3 teams. So probably at our fullest complement, we were up to probably 24 or just short of 30.
When you went out on a mission, how many went out?
Usually when we went out on a mission, it was anywhere between 6 to 12 guys.
Okay. And did you ever see 82 or 83 Charlie Mopic?
I'm not really sure I understand that.
Yeah, Dale Dye's movie about a LRP team out snooping around in the jungle.
Oh no! You know, I've heard of it, but I've never had the opportunity to see that.
A friend of mine thought it was a documentary when he saw it. Now, tell us, your call sign was Snoopy?
Yes, our recon team selected the call sign Snoopy.
And did you end up at Cam Duck?
In May, on Mother's Day, and I guess this is where the story kind of spins into a whole several generations of service. On Mother's Day, 1968, May 12th, which is a Sunday, our recon team was part of a special task force that was assigned to secure the Special Forces camp located at Cam Duck. And over the course of the 2 or 3 days that the battalion, our battalion, was there providing security for the evacuation of this Special Forces camp, the 2nd North Vietnamese Division focused its attention on that camp and overran the various OPs. And so on Sunday, Mother's Day, 1968, our team lost 17 men. And of that 17 men, 8 initially were missing. And in 1970, 3 bodies were recovered when the Allied forces went back to recapture that area. But for the past 38 years, we've had my lieutenant, my RTO, and 4 other young riflemen that were tasked to man OP2 have still been missing. Now, for me, as fate would have it, on the morning of Mother's Day, 1968, I was back at Chu Lai, waiting to catch a chopper to fly out to rejoin my LRP team, having just returned in country on the 9th from R&R. I obviously could not fully appreciate then why those circumstances put me, in a
Sure.
safe zone, if you will.
Why did you survive?
When my men did not survive.
Right. And so how did you first learn of it?
Well, as you can imagine, with all the activity that was taking place, everyone back at in the rear area for the battalion were monitoring all the radio transactions, so we knew what was going on. And it really was a matter of a rush to resupply our forces that were under siege. And I was down on the chopper pad, supposedly waiting for a resupply ship to fly in with some medical supplies as well as some additional ammunition, when the decision was made that there will be no more inbound flights and everything was to be focused on evacuating everyone else.
Alan, we're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we're going to learn of the battle, and we're going to learn of the aftermath. We'll be right back. Okay. And we're back at Veterans Radio with Alan Ho. He served with the LRP team in Vietnam. He was a doc. And we're talking about the Battle of Cam Duck, in which his entire team was lost while he was still returning from R&R. Alan, the men were lost. You were especially close to several of them, one of them being Skip Skivington.
Exactly. For the most part, when the infantry units would travel, whether it be at the platoon level or even at the company level, the lieutenants always had tied to them on the right side their RTO, who was responsible to carry the Prick 25, as probably all of us lovingly remembered.
Right.
And the senior medic. I was the senior medic for the team. The senior medic would always be part of the CP, or the command post, which was the lieutenant, his RTO, and the medics. And so, over the course of the several weeks that we had worked together before I left to go in R&R, the 3 of us became very close, and so it was especially of concern for me, the safety and well-being of lieutenant, First Lieutenant Frederick Ransbottom, and the RTO William Skivington, or as we called him, Skip.
And when you returned from Vietnam, you went to visit Skip's parents?
Yes. One of the things that those of us who survived had promised each other is that until we were able to account for all of our men, we would stay close to each other, support each other, and also try and contact the families of those men that we had served with who were missing, to share with them whatever information we had and that they might be interested in.
You were from Hawaii, and Skip's parents were living in Nevada,
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
So one of the things that I did in maintaining my promise to my men was that probably within, I think it was about 6 months after I got home, I took a trip to Las Vegas to visit with Skip's family.
Tell us about Skip's dad.
Skip's dad is an incredible gentleman. He was a young sergeant who was Skip's hero, and like most young soldiers, our fathers who had served in World War II or Korea were our heroes. So Skip's dad was a young soldier that had served with the 101st Airborne, and he was part of the glider troops that participated in D-Day, that participated in the Battle of Bastogne, and participated in the Battle of Market Garden, and the list goes on. And he was just an incredible soldier in terms of his accomplishments and his achievements during his service with the 101st Airborne.
Surviving was quite an accomplishment because the gliders took 80% casualties on landing.
Exactly, and so for me it was always deemed part of my duty, and it was an honor to meet and be of assistance to Skip's family.
How often did you see them over the years?
I just saw the family that one time, but we maintain correspondence and later on through email, because the family, after several years, they relocated to Oregon, and then more recently they had moved back to Las Vegas. But I had the honor again in April of this year to go and visit with them.
That had to be quite moving, because we're going to go now to the story of your son, Nainoa.
Yes, Nainoa.
And tell us about Nainoa.
Nainoa grew up hearing all the stories of Dad's experience in Vietnam. Nainoa grew up knowing all about the men who served with Dad on Recon Team Snoopy. And when Nainoa was 12 years old, I had the chance to take him with me on a business trip when we visited Washington, D.C. And I took him down to the wall. I introduced him to all of Dad's comrades, and in addition to that, I have two cousins who are also whose names are also on the wall. And for this young 12-year-old boy, after we visited the wall, we went over to the Tomb of the Unknown in Arlington, and he was absolutely transfixed by the changing of the guard ceremony. We got there, we watched it one time, and I said, "Well, pal," I said, "Are you ready to go?" Because he and I had hiked across the bridge, and this was like in June. And he said, "No, Dad, I want to watch it one more time." And we stayed and watched it another time, and that experience seemed to have given him a sense of purpose, a sense or an idea of what it was he wanted to do. And
at the age of 12.
At the age of 12, and it was unreal. It was almost like from that point on, he knew he wanted to become a soldier.
What kind of a student was he?
He was a perfect kid. He was an honor roll student. He when he started his high school at Kamehameha schools, in Hawaii, he participated in the JROTC program, and he excelled at that. And he liked the outdoor physical activities, the challenges. You know, they have these Ranger Challenge courses and activities they engaged in, and he just truly enjoyed that.
And he did well with his grades?
He did well with his grades. He was an honor student.
Really?
He, in addition to that, when he graduated from high school, he enrolled at the University of Hawaii and got a degree in computer science. And then he one day he said, "Dad," he says, this is now after he got his bachelor's degree, his BS degree. He said, "Dad," he says, "I think I'm ready to go in the service at this point." And I said, "Well, I'm honored." I said, "With your degree, you can get a commission." And he said, "No." I said, "What do you mean, no?" He says, he said, "Dad, you were a young soldier. You were an NCO. I need to know that I can succeed as an enlisted man before I will become an officer." And that just blew me away. And so he joined the Army Reserves and served as an enlisted man with the 100th Battalion in the Army Reserves, and he excelled. He in 2001 was named the Pacific Soldier of the Year, and in the following year he was also the number 2 runner-up for the U.S. Army Reserves Soldier of the Year on a national level.
And he participated in a lot. We've got about 1 minute left before the next break, but during the period of time as an enlisted man, then he did a lot of the additional training, did he?
Yes, he did. He would take advantage of every opportunity to engage himself in the activities that enlisted guys participate in.
Scuba training, or did that?
Well, actually, that came a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he went to school and he got a master's degree.
Yeah, and then after he felt confident that he had gained some success as an enlisted man, he enrolled in the University of Hawaii in the master's MBA program, and this is the extent of his qualifications. He competed for and received probably the most prestigious full scholarship for academic achievement for the master's degree program. And I said, "Thanks, son." So that meant, I didn't have to worry about
any real father would.
His tuition, right? And and at the same time, he then enrolled in the ROTC program.
Terrific, Alan. We're going to take another break, and we'll be right back. And we're back on Veterans Radio this Father's Day, 2006, and we're talking to Alan Ho, whose story involves the World War II, Vietnam, and the war in Iraq. Alan, we were speaking of your son, Nainoa, and
right.
After he achieved all of these honors, he became an officer in the regular Army, did he?
That's correct. He earned his commission along with his MBA degree in May of 2003. And then he left for Fort Benning for his IOBC coursework in July of 2003. And by March 2004, he had completed his requirements for his infantry basic course, his jump wings from jump school, and also completed his course for Ranger qualifications, and which is fascinating because everyone kind of appreciates how difficult Ranger School is, but this young boy had a mind that he needed to focus on it, and he completed Ranger School in one pass.
And somewhere along the line, he was named number 4 ROTC student.
Exactly. When he earned his commission, at the time he earned his commission, he had already also attended the Navy SEAL scuba diving program at Pearl Harbor, and had earned his scuba badge. He also served in the ROTC Cadet Command as a Command Sergeant Major, and when he graduated, he was the Cadet Battalion Commander.
And he was number 4 in the nation?
And he was out of the 4,500 ROTC cadets that were commissioned that year, he was number 4.
And a proud dad watching him?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, then he got the orders for Iraq.
He then, I always thought it was cute, because one day he called me and he said, "Dad," he said, "you'll never guess." He said, "I got my first choice for branch assignment," and I laughed, and because I knew what he had wanted. He had put in for infantry, and I said, "Boy, aren't you the cat's meow?" I said, you had to work real hard and achieve all the success you did so that the Army would accept you as an infantry officer. And I thought that was just the neatest thing. I said, even if you didn't try, they would make you an infantry officer. But he, upon completing all his training, received orders to travel to Fort Lewis, Washington, to become part of the 1st Brigade, 25th Division Stryker Brigade combat team, which was in the middle of its training for its deployment in October of 2004. When he arrived there, he was assigned to the 2nd Platoon, Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 21st Infantry, or the Gimlets. And he was just absolutely, again, thrilled to be assigned to the Gimlets, because he knew the 321, when Dad served in Vietnam, was one of the sister battalions with 2nd of the 1st, and we all belonged to the 196th Light Infantry Brigade at that time.
And you carried a battle flag throughout Vietnam, did you?
Yeah, our team, and I guess because I was the doc, I had kind of these little additional privileges or honors. We had our recon team had a battle flag, and I carried this flag. I think it's like maybe 18 inches by 30 inches. And I carried that flag wherever we went, and then when we had an opportunity to fly it, we flew it. And
what did your son ask?
And when Nainoa got to Iraq, he, knowing the story of our men that were still missing, said, "Dad, please send the battle flag to Iraq, because my crew and I want to carry this flag in honor of your guys who didn't come home." And so I sent the flag to him. Among my most cherished possessions now is a photo where Nainoa is standing with his crew, all his squad leaders and his platoon sergeant, and they're holding the flag, and they're in Iraq. And the saddest thing is that on January 22nd of 2005, he was carrying that flag when he was killed in combat.
Alan, if you need to take some time, we can take a break right now.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you understand.
I'm in admiration of you that you can continue with this. Tell us how you felt when your son left for war. You'd been there.
I recalled what it was like for me when I decided to volunteer to go to Vietnam. I was young, and like I think we had commented earlier, perhaps not in full command of all our faculties. It was an adventure of a lifetime.
You've got two people in this booth nodding in agreement.
It was an opportunity
Sure.
or an adventure of a lifetime, if you will. And my son Nainoa, he was cut from the same stock, and he wanted to serve his country, and he felt that the best way for him to serve was to lead young warriors into combat. And he possessed incredible skills and talent in doing that. And so, before the brigade left for Iraq, we attended the deployment ceremony at Fort Lewis. And I distinctly remember one of the last evenings that we spent together. His mother and I, and Nainoa and his young bride. I shared with him. I said, son, you are about to do something that will change your life forever. I said, I know growing up, you probably wondered at sometimes why Dad was a bit strange at times. But you will, when you get to Iraq and when you are first exposed to combat, and when that first shot is fired, that will change your life forever. The men who stand with you, stand around you at that moment will become part of your family for the rest of your life. And you will do anything for them, and they will do anything for you.
I want to read something that you wrote. The men you serve with in combat, even more so than the combat, probably have the greatest impact upon your life. The men who stood at my side changed my life in ways that still impacts me daily.
Oh, that is so true. And I think every one of your listeners who've experienced that, they know exactly what that means.
I have the same feelings. I was not combat. Only got shot at a couple times, but Dale sitting opposite me was a helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
One of those guys that sat in the picture window and waited patiently for the grunts to get the wounded guy over there.
Yeah.
Well, they were losing pieces of their helicopter.
Yeah.
So
I had a quick question for you, Alan, and that was the coincidences that seemed to crop up. There was a family member that your son was involved with that had been involved when you were in Vietnam.
Yeah, this story probably requires several interviews. But one of the fascinating things that we discovered was that during the Battle of Cam Duc, there was a young Air Force captain who flew the O-2, the Cessna, the push-pull Cessna, and he was the forward air controller that was overhead during probably the most significant part of the battle for Cam Duc, and he was providing air cover and calling strikes in and around the area so that those of my men who were able to survive were able to escape off the OPs and rejoin the rest of the battalion back on the airstrip. Well, as it turned out, 37 years later, we learned that the son of this young captain, Air Force captain, James Gibler, his son Michael Gibler, was Nainoa's battalion commander.
The connection, the intertwining is something that, as you said, it would take several interviews. Reading about the story, I was amazed at how the story goes apart and then comes back together again.
Yeah, it is just absolutely incredible how all these little bits and pieces of fate, if you will, have woven my life into the lives and of many other soldiers and their families.
And on Father's Day, do you have any special thoughts?
Oh yeah, on Father's Day, especially this Father's Day, fathers, I think, whose sons are and daughters are in harm's way. We need to remember and be so proud of their sons and daughters, and especially for the children whose fathers are in Iraq at this point. We cannot
support them enough.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the story, and that's why I thoroughly appreciate every opportunity. I've become really a shameless huckster for our incredible young men and women who are doing such an incredible job in our name for freedom and liberty. And more so, especially us Vietnam-era veterans who probably didn't have the best memories of what it was when we came home. I think I would like to honor the tradition that our children have done such an incredible job to honor our legacy.
I'm so proud of them today. Alan Ho, thank you so much for being on Veterans Radio. It was our honor, and you have an amazing story, and a terrific person to talk to, a wonderful person to talk to. Aloha, Alan.
Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you very much.
Aloha.
And we're back on Veterans Radio, and I found that amazing. That was incredible.
And there's other parts to that story that we didn't even have a chance to cover. Talk about the nurse as an example.
Yeah, that was fascinating to find out that Alan gave a speech at the Memorial Day ceremony at the Vietnam Veterans Wall in 2005. This is shortly after his son had died.
Months.
And he ran into an Army nurse, Major Coughlin. And it turns out that Major Coughlin was in Iraq at the time, and she was the nurse that was taking care of his son when he died. And there's too many coincidences and too many parallel universes and all those other things that go along with that. But I just find it incredible that Alan was able to give that speech. Much less, you can hear the emotion in his voice when he talks about it, and I don't know how he does it.
I don't either. I saw him speak at the Vietnam Veterans of America National Convention last year. And that was a long speech in which he got through the whole story. He had to pause a few times, just like tonight. But I don't know how he got through it with only a couple of pauses. Obviously, he had the young man worked for me, and he was just a wonderful person. And his mother said, if you could go to a store and pick out your son, I would have picked out Ben. And it sounds to me like that's the way it was with Nainoa.
It certainly does sound like that, but we want to wrap up this week's program by wishing everybody out there a happy Father's Day, and that all of you remember your fathers, remember what they tried to do for you, and remember what you're trying to do for your sons and daughters, especially those that are in the service. And we wish you all the best, and our prayers are with all of them.
And give them a hug the next time you see them. Tell them you love them.
Give them a major hug. Next week on Veterans Radio, we've got Paul Rieckhoff, who is the founder of the Iraq-Afghanistan Veterans of America. He has recently written his own book called Chasing Ghosts, which is his experiences in Iraq. And he will be here with one of our new friends on Veterans Radio, Lieutenant Colonel Christine Cook, who is with the Michigan National Guard, and she spent her year in Kuwait. So they'll both be here next week on Veterans Radio. Until then, you are dismissed.